Hello, I'm Matt Muratore, and thank you so much for the local scene for hosting this forum. I've been the state rep for Plymouth for the last 10 years. I'm a father, husband, and I have 6 beautiful daughters and a granddaughter who's almost 3 years old. My wife, Kristen, is an elder law attorney and estate plan attorney here in Plymouth. As a former co-owner of a local daycare company and current partner in a senior living consulting company, I'm able to gain a keen sense of the needs of the working families and seniors. I'm grateful to have served the town of Plymouth as state rep for 10 years and looking forward to this run for state senate and be your next state senator. Currently, I serve on several Plymouth boards and organizations, including right here at PAC TV Board of Directors, BID Plymouth Hospital, Rotary Club, Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce, Plymouth Youth Development Collaborative, and the Plymouth Regional Economic Foundation. This election is about bringing a balance of power and common sense legislation to state government. It's about solving the migrant crisis. It's about making Mass affordable so people don't leave Mass. And it's about electing someone who has municipal, business, and state experience to hit the ground running. I've enjoyed working in the legislature and working across the aisle to get so many things done for our community. And I want to bring that knowledge and that experience and those relationships to the state senate to get even more things done for this entire region and the Cape Cod region. Thank you very much.
Ballot question 1 is whether the state auditor should audit the legislature. Can you explain the ballot question, why it is or isn't needed, and your position on it?
So question 1, I think, is probably one of the most important ballot questions that we actually have on the ballot for November. The pros of the state auditor being authorized to audit the legislators enhances transparency and accountability by allowing the state auditor to oversee legislative activities. The con is it raises concerns about constitutional separation of powers and potential conflicts between government branches. So I am actually for this. When I was first elected in 2014, I was appointed to a conference committee of 6 people to work out the differences between the public reforms bill that was actually put together by the legislature and voted on. But there were differences between the House and the Senate. And one of the things that I was really trying to push for in that public reforms law back in 2015 was actually for this, and actually having the legislature be audited, having the legislature be more transparent. And that's one of the things I'm running on, is transparency and the balance of power. I believe as a Republican and being in a state that's dominated by Democrats, that we need to have 2 healthy teams on a field. And by having this transparency and by having this audit, that will allow for that. Now, with that said, there are a number of states that actually do this. And we are one of the few that do not. And we are the least transparent state in the country. And this will actually help go a long way to increase the transparency and the trust of government. So I am for this, whether it's the state auditor that actually does the auditing or whether it's a combination with the state auditor and independent that's doing the auditing. I think it's a good thing for democracy.
Ballot question 2 is on eliminating the MCAS graduation requirement. Can you explain the ballot question, why it is or isn't needed, and your position on it?
With regard to question 2 and the repeal of the MCAS graduation requirement, I'm going back and forth on this one. I recently did a forum at the senior center here at the Cal and talking about these questions. And it was interesting to hear a lot of folks talking about this, particularly teachers that were in the room. I do agree that not having it as a requirement for graduation, I think that's why I'm leaning more towards yes on that question. It's still required that they'll still have to take MCAS in 4th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade. But it does lessen the anxiety of taking the MCAS test. Look, I have 6 girls. Fortunately, I only have 1 junior now. The rest are out of the house or in college. And we've had a lot of anxiety around MCAS tests. And my daughters are smart. But there's a lot of anxiety when it comes to MCAS time. And to take that anxiety away from them by not worrying about that in the 10th grade, and this is just for 10th grade, taking the MCAS test, it's not going to be a requirement for graduation, I think will go a long way. So I'm kind of leaning towards that, to a yes on that. And I think the teachers get stressed out about this as well, and I think by taking some of that stress away from them, I think will be helpful so they can learn other things. And then I think, when you look at the trade schools, and we have one in Plymouth South, when you look at these programs, where people learn to be plumbers and electricians and all these jobs that we absolutely need, it shouldn't have to be that has to be a requirement for them to graduate, because we know they're going to go into the trades, and we need all these people in so many other trades. So I'm leaning towards that. I'm not quite there yet. Again, and the con of this is that it could lower educational standards and diminish accountability in schools. There's a I understand that side of it too, but I'm not really convinced yet that that's really will be the case. But that's sort of where I stand on that.
Ballot question 5 is on the minimum wage for tipped workers. Can you explain the ballot question, why it is or isn't needed, and your position on it?
So my position on question 5, which is the increased minimum wage for tipped employees, right away off the bat, I'm a no on that one. And I really very quickly learned about this. The pro on this, it ensures fair wages for tipped workers and reduces reliance on tips. But the con is it could increase costs of living for businesses, leading to higher prices or reducing staff. And reducing staff really got me when I really read this and understood it. When you start talking to restaurant owners, that's a given they don't want it because it is going to raise costs. But when you actually start talking to the employees in these restaurants, and I have a couple of my daughters that actually do work in them, it would actually reduce what their hourly wage is, because right now I believe it's around $6.75 is the minimum wage for a tipped employee, for a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant, and then they get their tips on top of that. What this will do, and again, in the conversation we had with the folks at the Senior Center, the Cal, recently about these questions, and particularly this one, there are people that want to see tipped employees get a minimum wage, because that will reduce them from having to pay tips, and that's the issue that tipped employees are having. They don't feel they will get tipped. They feel the minimum wage of $15 is about what they'll get. Maybe they'll get a little bit more. But right now, they can make $20, $30, $40 an hour with their tips and their wages now. So I do think because of the fact that it will hurt tip employees, and that the restaurant prices and meals and cost of meals, things are so affordable as they are now, I believe that they will actually go up. So, and when you start looking at polls and you start talking to people about it, it's not a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. Now, on the flip side of this too, I do understand where everywhere you go now, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or whatever store you go to, they flip the machine over for you to give a tip. So it's almost like you're pressured to giving tips, and we are giving tips for so many different things now. And if you could afford it, great. And if you can't afford it, then don't feel pressured that you have to do it. But again, I think I would encourage people to vote no on question 5.
What do you see as the economic drivers in your district, and how will you support them in your role?
So with regard to the economy, I think the biggest driver of our economy here on the South Shore, as well as the Upper Cape and even all of Cape Cod, is tourism. And I think I've been a proven leader with regard to tourism. I was actually the ranking minority leader on the tourism committee for 8 years in the state as a state rep. And we've been able to bring millions and millions of dollars into Plymouth for all sorts of things, including infrastructure, including funding for the Spire Center and Pilgrim Hall Museum, the Plymouth Center for the Arts. We also started the cultural district in Plymouth as well. And all these things, what they have done is brought more people in here. And the more people you can bring to this region and give them reasons to come to this region, and give them a reason to stay, and not just drive through and just stay for a couple hours and leave, but stay longer. That's vitally important. One of the other things we did is the T-Wharf in Plymouth. We really redesigned that. We created a marine facility through funding through the state and the federal government, and that now brings boaters in as well. So now we have the boating community that can come in, which lessens the traffic at the waterfront and on Main Street. And so I think that was very helpful. Most recently, cruise ships, very instrumental in helping get the cruise ship to start coming here. Again, another mode of transportation to bring people here to help our economy. So I do think that's a staple here. I also think as a small business owner that we do need to do a better job at tax incentives and tax relief for small businesses. Look, small businesses are the backbone of our economy here in Massachusetts, and particularly this region, and we should be supporting them. They hire the most people in our economy. You know, everyone looks at these large companies that come in and the amount of people they hire, but when you add up all the small businesses and what they do for our economy, they do a tremendous job, and they are the backbones, as I said, for our region. So as much as we can do, I am on the Small Business Administration Committee as a state rep, so I have been able to go around and look at other parts of the state to see what what can be done. But it's pretty clear when you start listening to these folks that are running small businesses. And again, as somebody that did run a small business and was able to do a payroll, to pay the taxes, to fight for the better health insurance benefits and all that, it's difficult. It is a difficult task, and we make it difficult on small businesses. And I don't think we need to. I think we need to look at ways, to help fight the high costs of health insurance, to help with the tax, as I said, the tax incentives and tax breaks for small businesses so we can help them thrive. And we really should look at encouraging small businesses through our local chambers that we've been able to get funding for as well, to help grow small businesses and help encourage people to open small businesses. I'm also on the Plymouth Economic Foundation, have been for several years. It's a Plymouth Area Economic Foundation. And we look at this all the time. And one of the things we're looking at now is a blue economy. We're going to be having very shortly our third annual Blue Economy Conference. So we're looking at expanding, not just from tourism, but blue economy and so many other ways to try to bring more businesses into our communities that will help pay with higher paying jobs, that will help people from leaving our area and moving out of the area and worse, moving out of the Commonwealth. So I think the more we can do to help the small businesses in the economy and be creative in ways that we can be the leaders in a lot of these areas, like the blue economy, I think the better off we're going to be.
What will be your top 3 goals and priorities in your elected role? Which committees would you wish to serve on?
The 3 top priorities that we are hearing from people as we are going through this campaign, and I've been campaigning since the end of January, and we've been out there for several months now, knocking doors. We have a whole committee and a team doing this. And the number one thing we keep hearing is about the migrant crisis. And in a way that it is about humanitarian help that we're giving people, but what I'm hearing about, it's about the affordability of that, which is the second part of what I keep hearing about it. Things are too expensive here in Massachusetts. But for some reason, people are equating them to the $1.5 billion that we're giving for housing for the migrant workers. Now, we are a right to shelter state. We have been since 1983 when Michael Dukakis signed that into law. And the meaning of that right to shelter state meant that people in Massachusetts would be able to, families in Massachusetts that needed housing for whatever reasons, that they didn't have a place to live, that Massachusetts would take care of them. And we've been able to do that for quite some time. During the Baker-Polito administration, they were able to reduce shelters in hotels, eliminated people being in hotels. It's not the best place for people to be, is to be in hotels. It's not best, obviously, to have them at the airport or having outside a train station. And we're talking about families. And we really need to give them a better place to live. But more importantly, we need to look at that right to shelter law And what can we do on the front end of that? One of the things that I voted on several times is, let's put a residency requirement around that, where you have to, live here for 3 months in order to get a shelter, in order to be qualified for shelter, or you have to be here for 6 months. And that just hasn't happened. What's happened is the other end of this is that we're going to let people, and the shelters are full, and hotels are full. So we have about 50,000 people that have come through already. Now, we are moving some people out of the shelters and out of the hotels, but more people are coming in. I think that's more the issue, is that people are still coming in. We need to stop them on the front end of that. Help the people that are here, get them into the proper housing, and get them into help, having the federal government help them with the job visas that they need, et cetera. And again, let's be clear, this is a federal government issue, but it has been dropped in the laps of Massachusetts. We are the only right to shelter state in the country. That's why people are coming here, because they know they're going to be taken care of. But what it does with the funding, it takes away funding from other programs. And this is what people are seeing. Number of social service programs, reduced funding, prices going up. So many things are happening. And if you took that $1.5 billion just for the migrants, not just for people who need funding that live here in Massachusetts, but just that money, and used it elsewhere to help folks reduce the costs, reduce the burdens of the taxes they're paying, the high cost of groceries, et cetera, I think will go a long way. But that's the number one issue we're hearing. And again, the second part of it is what we just talked about, the promoting the economic opportunities here in Massachusetts. Again, if we can do, I think one of the biggest things I'd like to see happen is do another significant tax cut. We did a $1 billion tax cut at the beginning of 2023, and I think it helped somewhat, but we need to do more. And we have the money to do it. If we're not spending on the migrants, or the millionaires tax that went into effect a couple of years ago was expected to be $1 billion, it's well over $2 billion we're taking in. So we do have the money to do some more significant tax cuts that will help people, particularly middle class and lower class people, to live more comfortably and not leave our state. We are seeing people, young people who come to college here. We have great colleges and universities, and they're coming here, but they're not staying anymore because they can't afford to live here. Same thing with the seniors. Seniors that want to retire here, but they can't afford to retire here, so we're seeing people leave. So we're seeing about 1,000 people a week leaving Massachusetts, and we need to stop that. And the third and the final point that we keep hearing about is the transparency of government. And again, question one, will help with all that. But also that we need to elect more Republicans to have two good playing teams on the field. Right now, we have control of just all Democrats, and sometimes when you have full control, it doesn't lead to good policies. So that's one of the reasons I'm running as well.
How important is the art of compromise when it comes to representing all the citizens in your district and meeting legislative objectives?
With regard to the art of compromise, I don't like to usually brag about myself, but that's something I have done my entire life, and I believe firmly. And it's worked well for me here in Massachusetts in the state legislature. I remember when Vinnie DiMacedo, who was the former state senator and former state rep here in this area, said to me once when I was thinking of running, he said, it's all about relationship buildings, and it's about working across the aisle to get things for your community. I never forgot that. And your word is your bond. And so those are things that I've always lived by prior to getting involved in the last 10 years at the legislature, but I think it's really served me well moving forward. So I've been able to build a lot of relationships across the aisles with people, and I consider a lot of these folks my friends. Some of the several bipartisan bills that I've put together have been with Democrats. One is the Assisted Outpatient Therapy Program that I put together with Senator Friedman, who's on the Senate side. I've worked on veteran legislation with my counterpart here in Plymouth, Kathy Lenatra, and we worked on so many other things together as well, including so much funding that we've been able to get for the town of Plymouth. You don't do this alone, you do it with your partners. Also, with my opponent, we sat on a commission called the Ocean Acidification Commission and came up with a bunch of policies together through the legislature. So I think I've earned my respect from my colleagues. I think Again, I hate bragging about myself, but I think what I keep hearing from people, the most respected state legislator there is, because I'm respectful of others and able to compromise to get things done. I think the art of compromise has been lost, and probably Tip O'Neill and Ted Kennedy were probably the last great ones to actually do it. John McCain, the last great ones to do it. But sometimes people forget what we're here for. We're here to work for the people. And that's what I always keep in the back of my mind. We're here for the people. So what's best for the people? And how do I accomplish that? So a couple of things that we've been able to do. I'm a firm believer of putting groups of people together to help solve a problem. One of them, we put together a tourism roundtable prior to 2020, probably going back to 2016, 2017, right here in Plymouth. And we brought, all sorts of people involved in the tourism industry together to say, okay, what are we not what we're going to do just for 2020, because there's a group working on that. What are we going to do beyond 2020? And some great ideas came out of that, of those discussions over time. And another one we did was transportation roundtable, because we heard the needs of folks with disabilities, seniors, that are not able to get transportation at the times that they need it, for whether to go to work or whether to go to appointments. And so we created this roundtable, and we created what's called TPP now. It's a program here for taking people places. We've got funding for it. It's thriving now, and people can go on their schedule when they need to go to a doctor's appointment, when they need to go to work, not on the schedule that's from the services that are already publicly provided. So again, I think it's crucial to be working together. I've been able to achieve almost 100%, 99.85% voting record. I voted on over 2,000 votes in the 10 years that I've been there, and I'm proud of bills that we've been able to pass. I represent one community, just Plymouth, and I've been able to have 21 bills passed by working with my colleagues across the aisle. And I believe that there's more work to be done, and you need an effective leader that is not afraid to speak up and go against what the leadership of the House or the Senate wants. And sometimes when you're in the Democratic Party, you have to go along to get things done. And you may not believe it. Privately, I've had a lot of conversation with Democrats on a number of different bills that they didn't really want to vote for. But because the leadership of the House and the Senate encouraged them to vote that way, that's what happens. As a Republican, you're more freer. And again, I think it's a better exchange of ideas when you have a two-party system, two healthy teams on the field, and you can work together for your communities. Thank you to the Local Scene Impact TV for hosting this forum. We are facing unique and challenging times in our communities. Working together, we can overcome so much to be stronger as a district. There is still much work that needs to be done, such as solving the migrant crisis, creating tax cuts to make Mass more affordable and competitive, increasing mental health and substance abuse services, supporting small businesses by providing tax incentives, protecting our environment and Cape Cod Bay, along with creating meaningful and affordable and workforce housing. The opportunity to serve this community has been an honor of a lifetime, and I've been privileged to serve for the last 10 years. I am proud of all that we have accomplished together, and now I want to bring these accomplishments, knowledge, and experience to the other 7 communities in the Plymouth and Barnstable district. If elected, I will be asking to be on the Tourism Committee, the Small Business Committee, and of course the House Ways and Means Committee, which I've been on for several years now, and is the state budget. Again, there is still so much work still to be done, and I ask for your vote on November 5th so that I can continue to be your voice and advocate for the needs of the residents of Pembroke, Plimpton, Kingston, Plymouth, Sandwich, Bourne, Falmouth, and Mashpee. Together, let us keep progress moving forward. Thank you very much for your consideration.